Okay. Of course you would enter right as I start filming. This is gonna be rough because I live in California and my AC is off right now because I don't want to have the background noise. I got my napkins here. Got my food, got my napkins, ranch, and we are ready. Hey! Hi, hello, how are you today? I hope everyone is having a wonderful Sunday so far. And if you're not having a wonderful day, I hope it gets better. I hope you get to eat like your favorite dessert, or you get to watch your favorite comfort TV show. You want to make sure everyone's having a good day here. I am going to be sweating a lot. This is going to be really fun for me. Okay, I have to have a fan on or something. What you are now hearing and seeing, i.e. in my hair, is a fan. And I hope the noise isn't going to be too much of a distraction. I turned it down just a little bit. I just really need this. It's very hot in my apartment if I don't have the AC unit going, but I obviously don't want the loud noise of the AC to be louder than my speaking voice. So hopefully this will be good. This will be fine. I might actually turn this down to the lowest level. That's good. My name is Annie Buell. Thank you so much for being here, for watching this video. If this is your first time popping by, hello, hi, welcome. Stay a while. We have some food. Grab your favorite snack, and we can sit down and learn about haunted history, talk about that together. This is a place where we can sit down and talk about haunted history, haunted places in the world. This series name is called Stone-Faced Supernatural Sundays. What I do is I pop a couple of edibles and I order some really delicious food, and then I sit down and talk to you about a haunted place in the country, the history of that place, the people involved, etc., etc. If there's a place that you would like me to cover, please feel free to leave it down below in the comments. I'm always open to any suggestions. I'm focusing mostly on the US right now, but there's so many places that I want to cover, and there are so many that I probably don't even know are haunted, so please share with me some places that you would like to see me cover in the future. Today we are going to be talking about the Winchester House up in San Jose, California, and the genius behind this labyrinth of a home, Sarah Lockwood Pardee Winchester, or Sarah Winchester. Let me tell you something. When I first learned the actual story of this house, the history and the falsifications and the myths that have been passed down about this woman, I was surprised. If you haven't heard about the Winchester House, let me be the first to tell you how impressed I am that you haven't heard of it, because frankly, this house has been, it's been very popular. It's been in popular culture, especially in the last few years, because there was actually a movie made about the Winchester House. I think it was in 2018. And so if you are new to the story and the legend of the Winchester House and Sarah Winchester, let me break it down for you real quick. Pretty much, the story goes that Sarah Winchester was a woman who inherited millions of dollars and a 50% ownership of her late husband and late father-in-law's company, the Winchester Repeating Arms Manufacturing Company. They were known for making and distributing the Winchester rifle, aka the gun that won the West. And let me tell you something, this gun was used by everybody. Everybody, okay? When I say, I mean like Buffalo Bill, Annie Oakley. Yeah, like it was a super popular weapon on the market. Because it was so popular, when she inherited the fortune, she inherited about $20 million. $20 million back then, okay? So that would be the equivalent of about $500 to $600 million today. Yeah. She instantly became one of the world's wealthiest women overnight, but because she had lost so many loved ones and people close to her, after the death of her husband, she became paranoid that she might have been cursed simply by being a Winchester. It's said that she went to go see a psychic medium who told her that yes, she was in fact cursed, and she would forever be haunted by the spirits of those who died by being shot by the Winchester rifle. In case you didn't know how popular this gun was, guys, the fact that it was nicknamed the gun that won the West should give you a little bit of insight into how popular of a weapon this was. By the time she had inherited the fortune, she was bringing in a passive income of about $1,000 a day, which would translate to roughly about $27,000 a day today. Yeah, it's a lot of money. A lot of money. And the gun was used to wage wars against Native Americans, so he pointed out that many of the spirits that were haunting her were the spirits of Native Americans who had their lives taken by the Winchester rifle. And upon hearing this, she asked the psychic, what am I supposed to do? How can I help me? How can I alleviate this curse? And he instructed her that she was supposed to go to California and build a very large house, mansion, and to never cease construction. And in doing that, that would keep the spirits at bay, and they would pacify them, appease them, and keep her alive. So that's exactly what she did, according to the legend. She moved out to San Jose and immediately hired just under 24 carpenters to start building and expanding on the 8-cottage farmhouse that she had purchased, which sat on about 160 acres of land. And the story goes that building continued endlessly, 24/7, day in and day out. Sarah would hold seances at midnight so that she could communicate with the spirits, these spirits, and they would tell her instructions on how she should proceed building the house, how she should continue. And what we see today is that result. It's the Winchester House that currently stands. It is a sprawling 24,000 square foot home with 160 bedrooms, 13 bathrooms, 6 kitchens, 10,000 windows, 2,000 doors, 52 skylights, and way more intricate details than I think anyone could count in one visit there. And that's pretty much the bare bones of the story that's been told over and over about Sarah Winchester and about the Winchester House. It's the story of a woman driven by fear, guilt, paranoia, trying to find some sort of solution in spiritualism and the occult to help keep this supernatural paranoia at bay. Rumors would swirl that she was just a scared, mad woman who was squandering her inheritance on a seemingly never-ending construction project and who kept to herself for the majority of her life, only to really be seen at night, in the middle of the night, when she would be doing these seances. Well, what if I told you that story couldn't be farther from the truth? I know, shocker. What? Whoa, that's what I always believe. The movie. I know. Trust me, I'm gonna tell what really happened. I'm gonna break it down for you. It gets good. It's actually a really, really, really interesting story, especially when you learn about her education, her upbringing, where she came from. It's really quite interesting. The part about her becoming a widow and inheriting millions of dollars, that's true. And she did build an amazing home. But her life immediately following the death of her husband and the reasons for building such a maze of a house are not what has been fed into popular culture. Oh yes, my friends, as compelling as that story is, there are several issues that we run into when we kind of examine and look at the story and the holes more closely. But before we get into that, I want to talk about what we're eating today. If you are eating lunch with me as well, you can sit down and we can have a little lunch, dinner, whatever you're having together. So in observance of Lammas, which is a Celtic harvest festival holiday, it's pretty much a holiday that's dedicated to bread, long story short. So I got pizza, and I didn't just get it from like Domino's or like anything like that. Like I said, I'm really wanting to support small business. I got pizza from a restaurant called Upper Crust Pizza right down the street from where I'm at. And I think I got the right amount of food this time. We'll see. But okay, so here I got their cheesy garlic bread. Oh my god, this looks like an actual pizza. What the? This is big. Oof. That looks amazing. Yeah, cheesy garlic bread, for sure, for sure. And then, okay, so I got Alfredo sauce, bacon, chicken, onion, mushroom, and tomato. Not Alfredo sauce, no, I got their garlic, like, lovers sauce. But look, oh my god. Oh my god. I think I have to take a bite. I think I have to take a bite right now. You can't see, but my feet are like moving like this right now. This is so good. Oh my god, I'm so glad I didn't get a chain. I think I might eat this whole piece right now. We'll come back to that. Wow. Amazing. But now, cheesy garlic bread. This is a lot of boxes. Let me just move this over here. You can adapt. You can be flexible. I'll try a tiny piece first. Yeah. And I got ranch. They filled this ranch to the brim. Ooh. The ranch be hittin'. Oh my god. Okay, here we go. So, let's talk about the story. Here we go. Oh, but first, I got music playing. I'm a big girl. I got a music license so I can play some, like nice creepy music underneath. Okay, so here we go. So Sarah Winchester was born Sarah Lockwood Pardee in 1839. Although to this day, the exact date of her birth isn't really known. It's placed somewhere between 1835 and 1845. So it does vary a little bit, but what I read 1836, I read 1839. It's somewhere in that time period. She was born in New Haven, Connecticut to a upper class family, and she was the third youngest of 6 or 7 children. There were a couple of different numbers for the children, how many they had. It's possible that one of them could have just died really young, and that's why some sources say they had 6 children, why some say they had 7. And she also went by Sally growing up, not Sarah. She went by Sally as an homage to her maternal grandmother. And her family was a decently wealthy, very progressive, forward-thinking bunch. I love bread. Bread and cheese, like, you really can't go wrong. Her parents were Leonard Pardee and Sarah Burns, and her father first worked as the New England bathhouse manager, but he was also a woodworker by trade. And over time he became very successful building houses for New Haven's wealthy families, wealthy industrialists. He actually became very successful as a finished carpenter and expert craftsman, particularly of the styles that came to dominate Victorian architecture, and his carpentry would also be influential in the wood details that Sarah would incorporate when she would start building the Winchester House. Sarah's father would not only make a fortune building houses for the wealthy families of New Haven, but also by supplying the Union Army with ambulances during the Civil War. Because of her upper class background, Sarah received a really good education, and she was actually a polyglot, meaning that she could speak multiple languages fluently. As early as 12 years old, she was already speaking Latin, French, Spanish, and Italian. She also took an interest and exceeded in science and mathematics, but she was also very musically gifted as well, and also really well versed in the literary classics such as Homer and Shakespeare. And to add to all of this, she was described as a very beautiful girl, and her nickname was the Belle of New Haven. Even though she was very petite, she was only like 4'10". Tiny. Okay, I like bread and cheese and ranch. Really can't go wrong. Sarah's background in education is important because it gives us some insight into how her education and upbringing actually influenced her vision and architectural design that she had for the Winchester House. The town that she grew up in was a part of, New Haven, was a very progressive and forward-thinking town, in part because of Yale University that was there. At the time, it was known as Yale College. And because of the Yale University, there was this kind of thinking that came from the college known as Freemason Rosicrucian philosophy. She was surrounded by lots of open-minded, forward-thinking people, and several of her own members were actually Freemasons themselves. I don't really know what Freemason Rosicrucian philosophy is exactly, but it's important to know that it definitely had an impact on her upbringing, and that would inspire the details of her home. It's also important to note that at a very young age, Sarah was admitted into Yale's Young Lady Collegiate Institute, which was the only scholastic institution for females at that time at the college. That ranch is so good. Yeah. Look at that crust. Is it focusing? Can you focus? No? Believe me when I say the crust. She's thick. Yeah. As it turned out, the aunt of a few of her classmates was a woman named Delia Bacon. She ended up writing a treatise where she claimed that the works of Shakespeare were actually written, published, edited by Sir Francis Bacon. And her work was supported by many other popular writers at the time, including Nathaniel Hawthorne, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and even Mark Twain. Ironically enough, Delia Bacon had no actual biological relation to Sir Francis Bacon, which you'd think they would have a connection, but nope. All of this exposure to Baconian Masonic theory, along with her education at Yale College, would play a very crucial role in her development and what would eventually come to define her entire life. While many people who were close to Sarah would claim that she had no interest in spiritualism, it was actually speculated that she was a theosophist and adhered to a Kabbalistic theory put forward by Bacon himself. So Sarah came from a very close, well-off, well-educated family in town, right? And with looks to boot, she was kind of just the talk of the town. And Leonard Party had all but one girls. So you remember when I said he had 6 or 7 children? Yeah, all but one of them were girls. So he was pretty eager to start marrying his daughters off to New Haven's finest, most eligible bachelors. And she was actually the second daughter to marry, and she actually ended up marrying a man named William Wirt Winchester. Who is William Wirt Winchester? What's his story? Where did he come from? What's his deal? Well, break. Did you guys know that Sarah Lockwood Party and William Wirt Winchester were childhood friends? Yes, they grew up together. Their families were very close. So he would, oh, hi, what you doing? Wow, you're on camera. Okay, you do you. So he was born in Baltimore, Maryland on July 22nd, 1837 to parents Oliver Winchester and Jane Ellen Hope. But very shortly after he was born, his family moved to New Haven, Connecticut, and that's where he pretty much was from. When Oliver Winchester arrived in New Haven, he was determined to make a name for himself. And within a year, he would amass quite a fortune, founding a very successful shirt manufacturing company. He and a man named John Davies went into business together, and they founded this company, very cleverly named the Winchester and Davies Shirt Manufacturing Company. And according to historical documents, like I said, the Winchesters and the Partys were very well close acquainted through many activities, but mostly because they went to the same church together. Both families were pretty well intertwined with one another. Sarah and William's sister Annie were actually friends and classmates at Yale College. In 1857, Oliver Winchester purchased the failing company named Volcanic Repeating Arms Company from 2 men named Horace Smith and Daniel B. Wesson. And these 2 men had invented a rifle that could fire multiple round shots without the tiresome process of having to stop and reload after every shot, like most rifles on the market. However, the model that they created failed to deliver on its intent, and Winchester, he really wanted to break into the war industry. He had a lot of mechanical knowledge, and he understood that building on the idea of a repeating arms rifle and weapon would be revolutionary and completely change the game of war forever. So he, along with another mechanic that used to work for him at the shirt manufacturing company, and his partner, they both worked to kind of improve on this idea, but it would take them a while before they would actually start to see any success. So until then, most of the Winchester's fortune remained in shirts. Naturally, because the Partys and the Winchester ran in such tight circle, Sarah and William spent a lot of time together. So they would end up getting married on September 30th, 1862, right in the middle of the Civil War. And by then, William was working as the treasurer for his father's company, and he had built a very comfortable life for him and Sarah. So they decided they wanted to expand their family. And on June 15th, 1866, Sarah gave birth to a baby girl named Annie, whom they named after William's sister and Annie's old former classmate, who had unfortunately died while she was also giving childbirth as well. While Annie's delivery went well, almost immediately Sarah started to notice that there was something wrong with the child. The doctors would diagnose Annie with something called marasmus. Essentially meant that she was unable to process any protein or calories or food at all. And just 40 days after she was born, Annie would unfortunately die because of her condition. And Sarah never went on to have any other children after that. One thing that I didn't know about the story is how separated and kind of distance the deaths between her daughter and her husband were. I feel like it was always implied that these deaths were kind of like all in succession, like boom, boom, boom. But there was actually about 15 years between Annie's death and then when William would die later. By all accounts, Sarah and William had a very comfortable life in New Haven, and they spent most of their time and energy helping William's father's company. The company started to rapidly expand, and by 1869 they completely changed their approach in marketing the Winchester rifle. And that's when it started becoming known as the gun that won the West. And it also helped that this was the time when the Transcontinental Railroad was being built and completed. As the need for Winchester's rifles became greater out in the expanding West, Winchester made the decision to start opening up offices out there. So he opened a few in San Francisco, and he sent William and Sarah out to kind of oversee their opening, oversee their installation. But around the 1880 year mark, that was when things started to change drastically in Sarah's life. Sarah's mother died in early 1880, and then later that winter, her father-in-law, Oliver Winchester, died as well, which left William Winchester to inherit the company, to oversee the company. But even just less than a year after that happened, William Ward Winchester would unfortunately succumb to a years-long battle with tuberculosis. That's a lot of loss for one person to go through in such a short amount of time. When William died, Sarah became the immediate recipient of a $20 million fortune, an inheritance, and a 50% ownership in Winchester Arms stock. But the loss in her life didn't stop after William. She would lose another close relative shortly after that. So by the mid-1880s, her family life was completely decimated. According to what I read, after this loss, she kind of took a few years off and went on a long European tour. It's not really known what she did or where she went, but there are some theories and speculation. Because of her links to Freemasonry, and given how many of her own family members, both from the Winchesters and Pardis, were members themselves, it's possible that she was allowed access into some French and European Masonic lodges. It's also speculated that she probably visited some esoteric architectural landmarks like the French Cathedral of Chartres, I think I'm saying that right, probably not, and the Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland. So after a few years abroad, processing the deaths of her loved ones, treating herself to some luxurious travel, as well as some Masonic Rosicrucian enlightenment, she came back stateside and immediately decided that she wanted to get out of New Haven. Now, this is the part of the story that has been wildly embellished, in my opinion. In the story that I was told about the Winchester House, I need to keep eating. That's why I'm doing this. In the story that I was told about the Winchester House, and what's also told by employees and other tour guides, it said that she was so distraught after losing so many of her loved ones in such a short amount of time that she was kind of desperate for answers, desperate for some sort of reasoning as to why this could happen. And because of this, she fled to the advice of a well-known Boston psychic named Adam Coons. After spending some time with good old Adam, I believe she actually did a seance with him. She was told that she was actually cursed. There was an entire curse on the Winchester family. The curse included being taunted or followed or tormented by the spirits that had been killed by the famous Winchester rifle. According to the legend, Sarah was told that she needed to move out west and build a house, and to never stop building so that the angry spirits would be at peace, they wouldn't hurt her, they wouldn't harm her, and that by continuing to conduct seances on a nightly basis, she would find out how to keep building so that she could keep them happy and keep her alive. So that's what she did. She was just so desperate for answers. She was so paranoid, so stricken with grief that she would do anything anyone would tell her to make her happy. But that couldn't be further from the truth. According to one source that I read, it stated that the story of Sarah Winchester and the Winchester House had fallen victim to something called the Liberty Valance effect, which pretty much means that when a story gets repeated over and over again long enough, it just simply becomes fact, and then it's accepted as such. First of all, from what we know, no such psychic named Adam Coons ever even existed. And further, there's no evidence that Sarah ever went to see a psychic at all. Even further, there were several people in Sarah's life, both when she was living and after she passed, that continued to reiterate that she showed no interest in spiritualism and the occult, showed no interest in communicating with spirits, And a lot of the holes and questions that arise with this legend make a lot of sense when you look a little more closely and examine them. For example, why would building a house with all of these strange, odd features suddenly just confuse a bunch of spirits? What's the logic behind that? If she really believed that she was cursed just by being a Winchester, then why wouldn't she sell off her remaining stocks in the Winchester Repeating Arms Company just to kind of like rid herself of that burden and responsibility? This is so good, and you know what, it's settling in perfectly. This is good. This is a good thing we have going on right now. This was such a good idea of mine. Oh my god. But she did not do that. She continued to have control over her shares and to spend her inheritance. And on a larger level, when we talk about this story, we have to ask that why it is whenever we talk about something that's mysterious or just like unexplained or a little out there, we automatically have to ascribe it to this supernatural or paranormal. That's what some people would ask. Well, my friends, that is because the majority of what people know as the story of Sarah Winchester was the result of numerous gossip pieces published about her in the San Jose area. She was actually a very secretive and private person. There aren't really a lot of photos of her that we know of to this day. That's how little she allowed herself to be seen by the public. So when she came back from her hiatus in Europe, she decided to move to California, to the San Francisco Bay Area. She had already been to the state before. As I said earlier, Oliver Winchester sent her and Willingham out there when he was opening up a few new businesses and installations, when he opened up new offices for his company. So she was pretty familiar with the area, and she really liked it a lot. Another motive for her leaving was so that she could be closer to her remaining family. Her brother-in-law, Homer Sprague, was appointed the president of Mills College in Oakland. So when he and his wife, Sarah's sister Antoinette, moved out there, Sarah and another sister of hers, Isabel, and her nieces and nephews all moved out there as well. It was a whole family event. And because of Sarah's enormous fortune, she already wanted to expand on the house, the 8-bedroom farmhouse that she purchased, because she wanted all of her family to live together in the same home. But what's very sad is that that never came to be. Those dreams died very quickly after she arrived to San Francisco. Pretty much as soon as everyone got out there. Homer's tenure at the college only lasted for about a year, and he found another university job in North Dakota. So she said bye to her sister and brother-in-law very shortly after she moved. And then her older sister, Isabel, ended up just moving to San Francisco. So she was just kind of like left alone to continue designing the house by herself. The popular story paints her as this like mad woman who was just driven by like fear and paranoia and willing to do or spend anything, no matter how ridiculous it was, to keep these spirits at bay. But she actually dismissed 2 architects that she originally hired because she wanted to do the designing all herself. We love that for you, Sarah. And despite what the folklore says, she did not have her construction workers working 24/7 around the clock. And the so-called seance room that people claimed to see her conduct her midnight seances in was actually her gardener's bedroom. Contrary to that legend, she actually dismissed her workers one summer when she learned that the plaster that she wanted to use wouldn't set properly in the summer heat. So she said, okay, you can leave for the summer and come back when it gets cooler and we can pick this up again. So much for 24/7 round the clock. Now that I said that out loud, like, that does seems a little dramatic. It seems a little excessive. And we just believe this. We just accepted this as fact. Ugh. Anyways, focus. Over time, the original intent and reason for building and expanding upon the house changed. At first, she just wanted to have a place where her family could come and stay and live together. They could come enjoy themselves and be entertained. But over time, she kept fending off neighbors' requests to come by. kind of sidestepping them a little bit under the pretense that the house was never fully complete or ready for guests to see just yet. But eventually the house would serve as a tribute to her architectural genius and her educational environment that Sarah came from and had direct exposure to. That's really the answer as to why the Winchester House is a mystery or strange to so many people who are unfamiliar with the concepts that she used and serve as inspiration for the design. Okay. That was a little messy. As stated earlier, Sarah had direct exposure to several Masonic, Rosicrucian, and Baconian schools of thought and concepts in her young life, her young early life. One of those concepts involved the tradition of the initiate and the numerous tests that this person had to go through as a novice student. Wow. I'm like, yeah, feels so good. Anyways, in these ancient schools and times, the student was subjected to a series of tests. One of them was called a labyrinth. The labyrinth usually consisted of underground passages or tunnels all within an enclosed maze-like structure. I literally cannot get over how big this is. No idea. Oh yeah, for those of you that call it the nails that are somewhere here, there's a reason for that. Which I might explain one day. It's kind of funny. But right now this is important. This is very important. Okay, so the goal of the initiate was to successfully navigate through these passageways and all the obstacles and the traps that came with it. The purpose for this test was to get the initiate to sharpen and learn to rely on their own power of intuition and insight. So when you look closer at the details and structures that Sarah incorporated into her home, it's easy to see that her labyrinth certainly paid homage to these ancient schools of thought. While one book that I read described Sarah's house as, quote, a form of automatic writing, a stream of consciousness made spatial, end quote, another source highlighted the intricate numerological details, references, and layers that are very carefully woven into the infrastructure of the house. For example, the front iron gates of the house are decorated with the sun symbol, containing 16 radiants, which was something that Francis Bacon used in his work as well. The number 16 is super important as it pertains to Francis Bacon and his work. The year 1616 was a pretty pivotal year in his life, according to history. That's when his close friend and colleague William Shakespeare died. It was when he created his Society of the Speculative Freemasonry, and he also wrote several works furthering Rosicrucian philosophy. Also, the number 16, according to numerology, simplifies to 7. 1 plus 6 combined is 7. Another number that Sarah also incorporated throughout her house. A staircase in the house, known as Jacob's Ladder, contains 7 turns. Another example of Sarah's intricate numerological details in the Winchester House lie in her own bedroom, located on the south side of the house. On the second story, the ceiling of her room is mapped out into a square grid, consisting of 49, or 7 squared, single squares that are meant to mimic a mathematical table created by mathematician John Dee. It's said that if you try to look up at the ceiling using the same eyes as Sarah's, you would see many numbers jumping out at you. First, the number 49 reduces to the number 13. 4 plus 9, 13. Whether you line the squares up horizontal, vertical, or diagonal, they all come out to 7 equally, creating the number 777. When you multiply 777 by 13, you get the number 10,101, which would reduce to 111. The more that I learned about this, there is seriously so much information. It's so much. And when you read it all, you're like, okay, I get this. Like, there was a lot more, so much more education, so much more knowledge that went into this house. Another interesting feature of the house is none other than the seance room, according to folklore. But according to Rosicrucian philosophy, all members are supposed to have a space or room that is situated as closely to the center of the house as possible. So that would minimize as much noise and distractions from outside. This room, according to Rosicrucian philosophy, was known as the sanctum. Sarah's sanctum is said to have been a tribute to the Sanctum Sanctorum of Solomon's temple. The room is shaped like a cube and measures 11 by 11 by 11 feet, which when you combine those numbers together becomes the number 33. Honestly, there are so many tributes and details and references to Masonic Rosicrucian philosophy and tributes to Francis Bacon in her house. So I'm going to link the website below if you want to read it all, because it is, guys, it is so much information. But trust me when I say, after reading the real history of the house and how she went about designing and incorporating these details into her home, it's very easy to tell it wasn't just a mad woman barking nonsensical orders at her workers all day and all night. That's just malarkey. Malarkey. Oh, hi. Baby. Hey. You're gonna sit like that? That's nice. You're gonna be good. Okay. Mommy's trusting you. I can't believe I used the word malarkey. Why do I use words like that when I'm... Why? Who knows? Anyways. Now, I know you might say, Annie, but what about the door that leads nowhere? Or the staircase that leads nowhere? What purpose is there in that? Well, might I remind you what part of the country the Winchester House stands on? San Francisco? In case you didn't know, the Bay Area has had several horrific natural disasters occur, lots of them being earthquakes. Originally, the house had reached a height of 7 stories with some 500 to 600 rooms, but after the 1906 earthquake destroyed certain parts of the house, Sarah thought it would be best to keep the house at 4 stories high and just continue building out instead of up, which was probably a good call. Probably a good call, Sarah. So of course, if there were staircases being built at that time, I mean, it makes sense why they would just like stop working on them and they would just like seal that part off, you know what I mean? So, where did this narrative of Sarah Winchester obsessively building this house to keep ghosts away from her come from? It came from an unsigned article that was published in the San Jose Daily News on March 29, 1895. The article was titled, "Strange Story, a woman who thinks she'll die when her house is built." And this is pretty much where that embellished story of a woman overcome by grief, mourning, and paranoia would use her wealth to keep these spirits away from her. The article describes the situation as such. I'm definitely going to read from my notes here because there's no way that I'm going to, like, memorize. Fuck no. Oh. Hey, number 1. That wasn't too bad though, right? I think that was number 1. Pretty sure that was number 1. Quote, 10 years ago, the handsome residence was apparently ready for occupy, but improvements and additions are constantly being made, for the reason that the owner of the house believes that when it is entirely completed, she will die. This superstition has resulted in the construction of a maze of dunes. Keep it over there. This superstition has resulted in the construction of a maze of dunes, turrets, cupolas, and towers, covering enough territory for a castle. Although no part of the structure is over 2 stories high, the house is large enough to shelter an army. End quote. Sarah was an easy target for the people and press of San Jose to mock and resent. This was during a time when America was coming out of a pretty severe economic depression. The one that just would kind of eclipse that one would be the Great Depression in the 1930s. So across the country, things were really bad and really tough for millions of people. But she had all of this money. She was the 1%. She inherited all this money from her late husband's company and was believed to just be squandering it all. When in fact, Sarah actually made large donations of money anonymously to various charities throughout her time in San Jose. Yeah. She was lonely for sure, and she was a private person. So during a time when a lot of people were struggling to make ends meet, she was continuing to build this grand house while not allowing any people of the city to come and take a look or even visit. Not even her own family. And there weren't really a lot of people or articles published that came to her defense, and if there were, they only framed her in a positive light so as to try and get more wealthy people to come and move to the Santa Clara Valley so they could provide more jobs. It's better for the economy. According to the book Ghostland by Colin Dickey, quote, "The story of Sarah Winchester's house is always, one way or another, the story of money. It's claimed that when she died, her workers just stopped construction and walked off site, leaving half-sawed pieces of wood and nails only half driven into the wall. But lots of people don't even know that she had several other properties and homes, and she actually spent the latter half of 2 decades at another property she owned called youuuuu. So when she died, all of her assets were sold off, and she left all of the sales and removal of her assets to her niece and secretary, Marion Marriott." That's quite the name. I have no idea if it's any correlation to like Marriott hotels. No idea. But when the house was actually auctioned off, no one wanted to buy it. Her own lawyer, Samuel Lieb, appraised the house as having no value. There was only one person interested in buying it, and he didn't even have all of the money for it at the time. So he decided to lease it with the potential to buy it later in life. I don't really think that worked out for him. This man's name was the plainest name ever. His name was John H. Brown. So boring. And he had heard the rumors of the Winchester House and wanted to open it up as a tourist attraction. And according to historians, it was Brown who wanted to continue to perpetuate these rumors about Sarah, and that the sprawling mansion was haunted by thousands of spirits. One of the first notable people that went through the Winchester House when it first opened was none other than Harry Houdini. When Houdini arrived at the house, he was a man who at that time had made his living and built a career as debunking psychics and supernatural stories and myths. But after going through the house, his attitude apparently changed. And when he came out of the other side speaking really highly and positively of the house, that was when business really started to pick up. They were like, oh, Houdini said so? We gotta go check this out. As far as I read, there isn't a whole lot of haunted activity that goes on inside the house. The most popular spirit that seems to be reported a lot is the ghost of a former construction worker, only known as Clyde, or other people that have seen him have called him the wheelbarrow ghost. People have seen a man in white overalls and a boater hat, either fixing the fireplace in the Hall of Fires or pushing a wheelbarrow through the basement. This ghost has been seen numerous times by visitors, by employees, and apparently it comes through so clear that one time a couple of visitors went up to some employees and they were like, hey, that actor that you hired to play the ghost is really, really good. And the employees were like, we didn't hire an actor. Who are you talking about? Ooh. Another account occurred when an employee was giving a tour of a room that had been recently opened to the public. And when the employee heard a loud sigh coming from outside in the hall, they thought it was a straggler, someone in the group that, needed to catch up. So when they went out in the hallway to see where this person was, there was no one there, and the only thing that the employee caught was this shadow leg or something going right around the corner. Some tugging of skirts, shirts, and dresses have been reported throughout the years, and of course, it's been featured on many different reality TV shows and referenced multiple times throughout history and popular culture. And did you know that the Winchester House was actually the inspiration for the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland? I did not know that, but I love that connection. I love learning that. Isn't learning fun? never been to the Winchester House. I've always wanted to go, but it's 8 hours away from where I live in California. And if you're from California, you know how long that drive from Southern California to Northern California can be. Looking at you, 5 freeway. The story of Sarah Winchester is one that we love to tell because as a culture, we love bashing on women, especially older, single, and more private women. It's easier to write her off as a kook who obsessively paid to have this house built that made no architectural sense to the average person so that she could appease the fear and the guilt of carrying some sort of curse brought about by the hundreds of thousands of deaths of Native American spirits, all because of a weapon aptly nicknamed the gun that won the West. It's easy to tell that story as opposed to seeing the true art and appreciation of Sarah's education and her mind and her process. She was very intricate and calculated. She knew what she was doing. I'm actually really glad that I did this video because I had no idea that the alleged myth of her visiting the psychic wasn't even real. I did not even know that. And then also like being told to like flee to California. Didn't know that either. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. Let me know if there's any other place that you would like me to look up in the future. I'm sorry that this second video took so long. Truth be told, there was some car trouble, there was some electrical, technical troubles. That's why you see the nails here, just because it's a different day that I'm shooting this. There was a break, and if you caught that, congratulations. Anyways, that's it for me. I feel like this was like a longer video. We'll see when I edit. That's the fun part. Hopefully this will be like a much better edited video. So I'll have the music, the food. Even though this is a different day, I did actually still get the same food, the exact same food, and I ate everything. It's actually like a pretty good amount. I had like 3 pieces, and then there's like 5 pieces of like garlic bread left. That's a lot of that garlic bread. It was so good. That ranch though. Let me know what other haunted places you would like me to check out in the future. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching and for your support. I'm gonna go put the leftovers away, and then I'm gonna upload this to my computer, to my hard drive. I really do look forward to making these, so I'm gonna try and be more diligent in how I research, like how quickly I research, and getting it more on the schedule with the whole thing. It's just hard with a full-time job, but I do love doing it. Balance, everything will balance out eventually. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. I hope you guys are staying safe, and yeah, thank you. I will see you next time, guys. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bye. I'm not that first thing. We'll figure it out.